Hi friends, welcome back to my channel and welcome to another video. In today's video, I'm going to be giving you all of my fantasy recommendations as well as going over my entire fantasy physical TBR. So basically all of the fantasy books that I own that I still need to read. So let's go ahead and start with my recommendations. I have a stack of books behind me that I think are just perfect if you're trying to get into fantasy, and they're just perfect fantasy books in my opinion. So let's go ahead and jump into the fantasy recommendations. Okay, and we're gonna start off strong with Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. This is a very well-known series, especially if you are on Book Talk. I feel like everybody has read this book or everybody knows about this book, and that is for a reason. This is seriously my favorite series I have ever read. The amount of like intricately woven details and like plot lines that were added to this entire series were just so insane, and the way that the story like all comes together at the end of the series, just insane. Basically, we have this female assassin. At first, she is summoned to the castle in order to try and win her freedom. When we start the book, she's actually imprisoned at this like slave campsite because of like some of her actions that happened in the past. And from there, it is just a beautiful, crazy wild journey, and definitely bring tissues if you're going to read this series because there are so many hard moments and it is just such a well-rounded series. I honestly couldn't rave about this series enough. It is my favorite series of all time. I love all of these characters, and like I seriously think about this book and the series every single day. It is like one of the best books I've ever read. So starting off strong with Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. Then the next one I have is also by Sarah J. Maas, and that is the A Court of Thorns and Roses series. You have to get past the first book. The first book is going to be a little cringe and a little wonky, but once you get past the first book, the series seriously just takes off and it sends you on such a roller coaster. Basically, this one, we have a human who kind of gets taken to this Fae land because she kills one of them, and from there shit goes crazy, shit happens, and it's just such a crazy story. This one has fae, magic, all this kind of stuff, different courts. There's a spring court, summer court, night court, there's trials, there's romance, it has it all. So I really love this series. This is actually one of the first series that really got me into reading fantasy, or got me back into reading fantasy, because obviously I loved The Hunger Games, The Maze Runner, Divergent, like all the core like books for fantasy, but this one specifically is what got me back into reading fantasy as an adult. So definitely worth a try. Just you really have to just push through the first book and then it gets really good. And then I have Caravel by Stephanie Garber. This book is full of suspense and you never know who to trust. You never really know exactly what's going on. And that's kind of just like the whole like basis of the book because of the setting and the plot line for this book. It's all a big game. Once she gets to this Caravel Island, there's these games that are taking place. It's kind of like a competition and you just don't know who to trust. You don't really know what exactly is going on. You don't know what's real and what's like in your head or like magic. So another really good series, full of whimsy, full of plot twist. I absolutely loved this entire series. So that's Caravel by Stephanie Garber, and I just love the aspect of like the Caravel game, and like I don't know, I just really enjoyed this one. And then this one I actually read recently, and it is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I cannot wait to continue the series. Crooked Kingdom is actually on my November TBR, and I just cannot wait to get around to it because the way that this book left off, my jaw was seriously on the floor. I did not see that coming whatsoever. But basically, this one is a heist fantasy, and you're following Kaz Brecker and this crew that he put together, and they are trying to sneak in to the ice court. Kaz Brecker, he kind of like runs this portion of his town, and he's like a well-known badass, we'll put it that way. But he and his crew are trying to sneak into the ice court because the ice court is like harboring this scientist who is creating this drug that has these very like high-powered harmful effects on the witches in this world, and they're trying to sneak in and kidnap him and bring him back to this other guy for $30 million. So we're kind of just following their adventure sneaking into this ice court, and so many plot twists in this book. I seriously swear there was plot twists up until the very last page of this book. I could not put it down. It was so immersive. Leigh Bardugo just has a way of dragging me into the worlds that she has created, and I seriously cannot wait to get back into this one. And then I have Divine Rivals. This one is a little bit of a slower pace and a little more softer and whimsical. Basically, there's these two characters that work at this like newspaper office, and they're kind of like competing journalists, and there's a war going on outside of like where they live. The main character, her brother, is a part of this war, but she is actually sent on a mission there to kind of do some documenting and whatnot, and he ends up following her to the like war site and everything. They're staying in the same place, but they have these magic typewriters that they use to send letters to each other, and they don't figure it out until like later. But the story was really good. Definitely more of a slow burn, but I really enjoyed this one as well. It's just so whimsical, and like the war isn't very harsh. Like you don't get very first-hand account of the war. Like you do a little bit, but like we're not getting a first-person view of like being in the war. So it's a little bit of a softer story, and it kind of focuses more on the history and their relationship and their friendship and everything that's going on around them. But I really enjoyed this duology. I feel like this one left off at a kind of weird place, so you definitely have to read Ruthless Vows as well. And then we have another book talk fantasy classic that got me back into reading fantasy as an adult, and that is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I don't even know where to start with this series. This series is actually just taken over my brain ever since I read it. Basically, they're at this war college and they're just competing in these trials, and they have their classes, but there is a war going on like on the outskirts of their city, and the like administration is kind of like twisting stuff and like lying to their students and everything about like the actual like what's actually happening. And occasionally like they're sending students out to these like edges and like these outposts and everything to document and to like fight in the war. But of course, obviously, there's dragons, and the dragons really just steal the show in this book. I'm obsessed with the dragons. I'm obsessed with all the characters, and of course, the romantasy and the enemies to lovers in this book is just off the charts. I'm really scared to see what happens in the next book. I think Rebecca Yarros just put out something, like she just did an interview, and she said be prepared for Xaden's villain arc. I'm not prepared. I am not prepared for Xaden's villain arc. I love Xaden and Violet together, and if they don't end up together, I'm gonna be so upset. But I'm just not ready for Xaden's villain arc. But either way, the series is also very intricate with the details and the plot lines, the way the plot lines connect and woven together. Really good. Really love it. And then I have Shatter Me by Tahira Mafi. This is another book talk classic. Once I got to the third book, I was hooked, but the first two books, they kind of start out at a slower pacing. Basically, our main character, Juliet, she has powers that she doesn't know how to use or control at first, and nobody can touch her bare skin. She can't touch people's bare skin without like damn near killing them. Like it sends like an electrical shock or something. And there's romance, there's wars, there's training, there's powers. Like such a good book. It's just full of so many good characters, and I can't wait to see how the story progresses because like I said, I'm only on book 4. I've only read 3 of these books, so I really want to continue the series. And then I have Lightlark by Alex Astor. This is another book full of whimsy, magic, and trials and competitions. And basically, every 100 years, the island of Lightlark appears, and each ruler from these realms are sent to compete to break the curses for the realm. But one ruler must die in order for the curses to be broken. This one definitely does have a good plot twist as well. The love triangle in this book is actually sending me into a spiral. It's to the point where like I like both of the guys that she could end up with, and like they both kind of are good for her. They're both very mysterious, and our main character in this book actually believes she is powerless for a good majority of this book. And I love when a character thinks that they're powerless and then later on they're actually like not. I just think that's such a fun twist, and lots of whimsical magic. Like Isla is the ruler of the wildlings, which is like they control nature, they can grow nature and all that kind of stuff, which is just so whimsical and so fun, and I really love this series. And then I have The Stars Are Dying, and I honestly did not expect to enjoy this book as much as I did, partially because the Goodreads ratings were so bad and like the reviews were so bad, but I actually really enjoyed this book. I honestly don't even know how to talk about it without like spoiling the revelation that occurs. But the main gist of the story is that she goes and tries to compete in these trials in order to protect her kingdom from the vampires and monsters that are on the outside of the walls. But basically, in the beginning of this book, she is being held prisoner by this man who claims to be like her lover. He basically found her in the woods and has protected her, clothed her, gave her a place to sleep, like fed her ever since. And so she's kind of just given him her like blind loyalty. And she actually snuck out and she ended up making a friend. But her friend is the one who's competing in the trials that are being held by the king in order to keep the vampires out of the city. Basically, the king holds these trials where the humans have to like show that they're worth protecting by competing in these trials. So her friend is actually the one that is chosen for the trials. So they were gonna make the trek together. She was gonna run away from the guy because she realizes that he is holding her prisoner and that she has no freedom. The best part about this book though is that there is I wouldn't say a voice because he does appear to her, but she is the only one who can see him. His name is Nightfall, and the revelation at the end between Nightfall and our main character was just so crazy. I was not expecting it, but the romance between those two as well, off the charts. Like, I loved every interaction between those two. Even though she was the only one that could see him, they could talk to each other like telepathically. So like something really big happens at the end that I don't want to spoil. I think the biggest thing to know before going into this book is that the brightest star needs the darkest night. So I really enjoyed this book. Also, it is a very stunning book. Like, I don't know if I just got a really good copy. I am just obsessed with the art and the graphics. Like, look at that. And then the map as well is just so detailed. And there's a couple of pictures that are just stunning that really sold the book for me as well. I honestly feel like I did not do it justice, like just talking about it and like describing it, but I absolutely loved this book and I don't understand the good ratings and reviews that were so awful because I wasn't bored like whatsoever. I will say that it was a little slow in the beginning, but once the story started like progressing, the pacing and like the progress of the story picked up so much and I was having so much fun. I was so intrigued and I literally didn't want to put it down. Like, it was really good. I really enjoyed it. But that does bring us to the end of my fantasy recommendations. Okay, so as you can see, this entire row right here is my fantasy TBR. First up, I have Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. I ended up thrifting this and it's actually like the collector's edition. I don't know what this book is about, but I've heard really good things about it. The back says power is a dangerous game. And then I have The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. This is the fourth book of the Hunger Games series. I believe this is following President Snow's perspective and like him in the games. I'm really not too sure. I know I need to get to this one so that I can get to the next one, which is actually Haymitch's story. Haymitch was one of my favorite characters in the Hunger Games, so I really want to get to his book. And then I have Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. All I know about this book is that there's vampires, but the back says, three young women, their bodies planted in the same soil, their stories tangling like roots. One grows high, one grows deep, and one grows wild. And all of them grow teeth. So obviously they're vampires and I love vampires. So I really can't wait to get to this one. Again, I've heard nothing but good reviews about it. So. And then I have Silver Elite by Danny Francis. I think this one went very viral like this summer. Everybody was raving about it. So I ended up thrifting it actually because I wasn't about to pay $30. Any of my hardbacks that I have, I most likely thrifted because why is a hardback $30, like $33, especially one with like sprayed edges? So I ended up thrifting this, but the back says, my name is Rin Darlington. I've been hiding who I am my entire life. Today will be no different. That sounds really good. I have no idea what it's about, but that sounds really good. I've heard mixed reviews about this book, but I think majority of them have been good reviews, so I definitely want to get to this one. And then I have Legendborn by Tracy Dion. I'm not too sure what it's about. The back says, some legacies are meant to be broken. After her mother dies in an accident, 16-year-old Bree Matthews wants nothing to do with her family memories or childhood home. A residential program for bright high schoolers at UNC Chapel Hill seems like the perfect escape until Bree witnesses a magical attack her very first night on campus, a flying demon feeding on human energies. So I know this is YA and I know there's like magical elements. I'm definitely excited to check this one out. Right here, I actually have 3 Brandon Sanderson books. I have Tress of the Emerald Sea, and then I have Steelheart, and of course Mistborn. Mistborn I'm supposed to read with my husband, that's why I haven't got to it yet. I also have this version of it. I was gonna read this one. He was gonna read this one, but we haven't got around to that yet. But I've heard nothing but good reviews about Mistborn, and I really just want to dive into Brandon Sanderson's writing. And then Steelheart, I don't know what this one is about. It says, how far would you go for revenge if someone killed your father, if someone destroyed your city, if everything you ever loved was taken from you? Which, that sounds really good. This is the first book of The Reckoners. And then I have Tress of the Emerald Sea. I really want to get to this book. The island aspect and everything just is really intriguing to me. Back says, the only life Tress has known on her island home in an emerald green ocean has been a simple one, with the simple pleasures of collecting cups brought by sailors from faraway lands and listening to stories told by her friend Charlie. But when his father takes him on a voyage to find a bride and disaster strikes, Tress must stow away on a ship and seek the sorceress of the deadly midnight sea. Amid the 4 oceans where pirates abound, can Tress leave her simple life behind and make her own place, sailing a sea where a single drop of water can mean instant death? That one, I've been so intrigued by this book for so long. I don't know why I haven't picked it up, but I really need to get to this one. And then I have Renegades by Marissa Myers. This is another book that I've heard so many good things about. This one, I believe, is more like a superhero YA book. The back says, secret identities, extraordinary powers. She wants vengeance, he wants justice. So that sounds really good as well. And then I have Red Rising by Pierce Brown. I believe this is more like a sci-fi book, and it's another one that I've heard nothing but good reviews about. The back says, his wife taken, his people enslaved, driven by a longing for justice and the memory of lost love, Darrell will stop at nothing to bring down his enemies, even if he must become one of them to do so. For the first time, Red will rise. I've heard literally so many good things about this. I've seen people crying to this series. I really need to get to this one. And then I have Scythe by Neil Shusterman. If I don't get to this book this year, I will be getting rid of it. I just don't think it is really my cup of tea. The back says, a world with no hunger, no disease, no war, no misery. Humanity has conquered all of those things and has even conquered death. Now Scythes are the only one who can end life, and they're commanded to do so. In order to keep the size of the population under control, Citra and Rowan are chosen to apprentice a scythe, a role that neither wants. These teens must master the art of taking life, knowing that the consequence of failure could mean losing their own. They learn living in a perfect world comes only with a heavy price. I don't know if I like that topic enough to want to read a whole series about it. I don't know if I really would vibe with it. I will give it a shot, and if I enjoy the first book, obviously I'll continue the series, but I feel like I haven't heard many good things about this one to really be like too excited to jump into it. So definitely want to try and give it a shot, but if I don't finish it by the end of the year, I will probably be donating it. And then I have City of Glass, which is the 3rd book of the Mortal Instruments series. I really just need to continue this series so that I can start the Infernal Devices series. And then I have 2 of the Crescent City books, again, hardback because I thrifted it. But I read this book last year and I don't think I was fully in it when I was reading it. So I can't tell you a single thing about the series, but I definitely want to try and reread it. I love Sarah J Maas's writing. So many rumors about the fact that the series will intertwine somehow between Throne of Glass, ACOTAR, and Crescent City. I've also just heard really good things about Crescent City, so I definitely want to give this one a re-go and like really like commit myself to it and like really be present for it, because again, I love the way that Sarah J Maas can write and like the way that she builds her world. This one also is more of an urban fantasy, like there's fantasy elements, but we're also in like the real world. Kind of like the same thing with the Mortal Instruments series. This is a urban fantasy as well because we're in like the real world setting. Just these characters have magical abilities and can see things that most people can't. So this one is also a urban fantasy and I really need to get to this. And then I have Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. No idea what this one is about, but I love Leigh Bardugo's writing, so I'm definitely excited for this one. And in Six of Crows, the witches are called Grisha. So on the back of this one, it says enter the Grishaverse. I think I was supposed to read this series before I read the Six of Crows duology, but the back says soldier, summoner, saint, orphaned and expendable. Alina Starkov is a soldier who knows she may not survive her first trek across the Shadowfold, a swath of unnatural darkness crawling with monsters. But when her regiment is attacked, Alina unleashes dormant magic not even she knew she possessed. Okay, I love dormant magic. I love badass female main characters, so definitely excited to get to that one. And then the last fantasy book on my physical TBR is actually the new Dueling Crowns edition of Lightlark, where it's Grimm on one side and then Oro on the other. This version is absolutely stunning, but I still need to read Skyshade, which is the third book of the Lightlark series, before I can get to this one. That's why I haven't even taken it out of the plastic yet. I need to get Skyshade first. I'm just waiting for it to come out in paperback because the other books that I have in that series are in paperback, and I much prefer reading on paperback. So once I read Skyshade, I will start this one. But this copy is just so stunning. I have been so tempted to open this up so that I can look at the art and everything, but I don't want it to get damaged before I can put it like up on my shelf. So I'm gonna leave it in the plastic for now, but once I read Skyshade, I'm gonna bust this bad boy open. But those are all of the fantasy books that I have on my physical TBR that I really need to get to. But as a quick refresher, here are the 9 fantasy books I recommend for you to read. And if you have read any of the fantasy books on my physical TBR, I would love to hear your thoughts on them, or if you can convince me to maybe pick some of these up that I'm a little more hesitant to reach for, I would greatly appreciate it, because some of these I really need to get through. Some of them I'm not really wanting to reach for, like, too bad. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!